Hello, church, and welcome to week 2 of our study, Rise Up, where we're taking a look through 1st and 2nd Samuel and looking at some of the major themes and characters and things that we can learn about our walk with God today. Last week, we talked about chapter 1 and the importance of the historical context. This is a period in Israel's history where they're in transition. They're moving from judges to kings. And we talked about how that shift is taking place all in God's timing. This chapter 2, is interesting because it can seem kind of easy to discard, easy to move past. You know, we want to get to David, we want to get to Saul, we want to get to Goliath, we want to get to some of the more exciting parts of the book. And so it can be really easy to skip over a chapter like this. The first half of the chapter is Hannah's prayer to God. Hannah thanks God for what he has done in giving her this child, Samuel, and she just pours out her praise and she exalts God. The second half of the chapter is God really condemning Eli and his sons, the current generation of priests that were supposed to be serving God, but were failing morally. And so, like I said, it can be really easy to kind of skim past these, but there's something really important here in chapter 2 that I want to focus on right now. This is the very end of Hannah's prayer. Chapter 2, verse 10, she says this: "He," talking about God, "will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed." And that verse might seem kind of, common, right? That sounds like a lot of stuff that we hear in Psalms, where every verse is about God strengthening so-and-so and anointing so-and-so. But this is a time in Israel's history where there are no kings. And so for Hannah to say this is prophetic, right? It would be like me saying, may God bless the next king of the United States of America. You would go, wait a minute. Well, what did you just say? We don't have any kings. What are you talking about? And yet, in this moment, this is Hannah's prayer. And so, obviously, God is working in her. God is doing something in her and through her to bring about this moment in Israel's history, this important foreshadowing that is going on here. And she could never know the full magnitude of that sentence that she just prayed. She could not fully wrap her head around what's about to happen. You see, her son, who she just dedicated to God, will be the prophet, will be the person who anoints that first king of Israel. And I'm sure that would be enough to make her proud as a mother, to see that moment where God chooses her son to be the messenger that sets up the king of his people. But shortly after that, he's going to anoint an even greater king, David. Not one who comes from the right lineage, but one that has a heart after God's own heart. And as proud as she would be of that moment, what she doesn't realize is that in anointing David, Samuel is anointing a lineage that will lead to Jesus, the one true king of Israel. And so as she's praying this prayer for the future kings that God will bless, there's no way that she could know the full magnitude that her son is going to be involved in this, and the full magnitude to which God will bless his kings and will bless the whole world through that true king, Jesus. And the second half of that verse, she says, his anointed one. That word, anointed one, that's where we get Messiah, chosen one, anointed one. And so she's praying for the king and the Messiah, and she has no idea that it's the same person, that is Jesus, and that he's going to come from this lineage that Samuel will someday anoint. The second half of this chapter deals with the failure of Eli's sons to do what they were supposed to do. They kind of coast on their lineage, they coast on their position, and they fail morally. They fail to have a real relationship with God marked by obedience and worship and service. And so God condemns them, and he's about to replace them with Samuel. And this is an important theme that we're going to see throughout this story, throughout these two books, is that God is willing to replace those who should have done something with those who will. He's going to continually replace the people that had the right birthright, that were born at the right time to the right lineage. He's going to replace those people with the people that have the right heart. So church, I don't know where you're at, but I know certainly sometimes I can look at my own life and I feel like the least qualified person to do what God is asking me to do. I feel like there are people who are smarter, who are more charismatic, who are more fit to do what he is asking me to do. But God isn't looking for someone that checks the boxes. He's looking for someone that has the right heart. He's going to replace these people who were the born Levitical priests with Samuel, who wasn't even supposed to be alive, who came from this woman who was barren and couldn't have children. And so I want to encourage you with that. Don't look at who should do this instead of you. Don't look at who's more qualified than you. Don't look at all the reasons why you are not the right person for God to use. Because he's not looking for the right person. He's not looking for these people who are born into the right circumstances. He's looking for the people who have the right heart. He's looking for people who are genuine in their worship and submission to him. And ultimately, this story of replacing Saul, King Saul's lineage, when he was the tallest, fittest, most obvious choice to be king, with David's lineage. The continuation of this theme, swapping the birthright for the right heart, is going to lead us to Jesus.